Coming up in today's newscast, rockets from Gaza bring Israel to the brink of war, China refuses to send foreign workers to Israeli construction sites, and superstar Netta Barzilai signs a huge record deal for the song that won her the Eurovision title. Tensions with Gaza have surged to the brink of war. Last night, multiple waves of rockets were fired from the Strip into Israeli territory, followed by dozens of Israeli counterstrikes. The back and forth only escalated as the night dragged on, and as of now, there finally seems to be an uneasy calm. But to put this into perspective here, this has been the most volatile 24 hours between Gaza and Israel since the 2014 Gaza conflict, Operation Protective Edge. The Iron Dome's alarms were triggered in the late hours of the night as rockets and mortar shells fired from the Strip in a series of waves. The night sky in southern Israel was alive with the sound of Israeli jets scrambling and explosions in the sky. At this time, we know of at least 5 people moderately injured from these rocket attacks, which includes 3 IDF soldiers. A family's home in Israel's Eshkol region actually took a direct missile hit. The sounds of war were apparently so loud that the family didn't even realize their home had been struck until they woke up the next morning and saw the hole in their roof. Israeli air teams have struck some 25 Hamas targets throughout the Strip in response to these attacks. The army believes both Hamas and the Islamic Jihad terror group were behind the assaults and have accused Iran of even supplying some of the rockets.
We hold Hamas responsible for all acts of aggression from the Gaza Strip towards Israel, whether it is perpetrated by this terrorist organization or another. Hamas is responsible, and we know that Hamas has the ability to control the level of violence. Violence will be met with the appropriate response, and quiet will be met with the appropriate response. The IDF has no interest to escalate the situation, but we stand ready to defend ourselves as needed against a wide range of threats that we have.
Reports suggest that Egypt stepped in to broker a late-night ceasefire deal in an effort to cool the situation. Israeli officials initially denied that this was the case. There is a ceasefire deal in place now, though, so for the meantime, the rocket fire has stopped. Israeli leaders have promised a swift and brutal retaliation if they resume, under the belief that Hamas is not, in fact, seeking a war at this time. Here now with more on the events unfolding around the Gaza Strip is Middle East expert and Colonel in the Reserves, Dr. Reuven Berko. Dr. Berko, thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure. So first question, in the last 24 hours, we've seen up to 100 rockets coming from the Strip. What can we expect to see next?
Look, the whole story of Hamas contains circles of violence which conclude these attempts to hurt the Israelis. This, in general, is an expression of a total failure that has been achieved by Hamas till today. The special attempts has been done in the tunnels field, in the rockets fields, and lately by the riots that attempt to break through the borders of Israel in order to slaughter and to get over some Israeli settlements. This all ended with total failure. So what we see now is some kind of desperate act to broadcast to the world, hello, we are still here. We try to achieve some points. We try to achieve some attention from the world. This is to maintain the story of Hamas, mainly in Ramadan month, but as you can see, they have been convinced very fast to get back to the holes, and I believe that deterrence has been achieved by the Israeli army. It is all a part of the operational code of radical Islamism. In general, Hamas belong to Muslim Brothers movement, which actually act like any radical Islamic movement such as ISIS, Al-Qaeda, or Boko Haram, whoever you see in the field of radical Islamism. So the idea is not purely Palestinian one, but a whole idea of radical Islamic conception to imitate the glory of Islam by using terror against Israel, trying to kill as much as Israelis as they can, but fortunately they failed, and I believe that for a long period will achieve a period of deterrence against this. So there will be another round, but the question is when. I believe that in any strike they get, the distances between the intervals will be increasing.
Well, I have to ask them about strategy here from their point of view, because if you say their aim is to kill as many Israelis as they can.
The aim actually is to get over Israel, as they call it, Palestine, the occupied land, but they ignore even their own holy book, which says that the all Israel, the blessed land, as it is called in Quran, is Israel's, the son of Israel are the inheritance of the holy blessed land. They ignore it and they say this belongs to us, and they do their best to demolish Israel and to kill its citizens. But fortunately are there. Instead of putting their energies and fortunes and the Israeli support and the universe, the world support, in the whole these all materials, in changing Gaza into Singapore, they've turned it into an Islamic emirate that uses missiles, that uses tunnels, terror activities, and this is the name of the game. I believe that they will not leave this operational code, and they'll keep on using it against us as much as they develop means. We develop counter activities, and we, for the time being, are managing to do it very well.
Right. Well, right now we do have a ceasefire. We've seen no rockets for the meantime.
It's temporary. We do not lose ourselves.
We'll see where it goes. Thank you for joining us. Your point of view is always very appreciated. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you very much.
Of course. All right. American and European leaders have united to condemn this aggression we're seeing now out of Gaza. The United States is seeking an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council to address the crisis. The council is expected to meet later today to denounce Hamas's actions and demand accountability from Palestinian leadership. Multiple American and European Union leaders, including U.S. President Donald Trump, have publicly come to Israel's side amidst the biggest barrage of rockets from Gaza since 2014's Operation Protective Edge. France's Foreign Affairs Ministry has reaffirmed that they are, quote, unconditionally committed to Israel's security. For most, the message is clear. Firing missiles at civilian targets in Israel is very much the opposite of seeking a peaceful resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, a position taken by representatives from both the EU and the UN. It may be worth noting here that Israel has often criticized the international community for not taking its side when it comes to situations like these. Israeli conduct during the 2014 war in Gaza were heavily criticized, despite the daily rockets fired into Israeli territory. But in this case, the world's powers seem to have collectively joined behind Israel and hold Hamas accountable for the violence. An internal letter sent between senior rabbinate officials earlier this week has just gone public, shedding new light on the divide between Jewish leaders in Israel and abroad, a divide many say is growing. And according to this memo, the country's chief rabbinate is also now refusing to recognize the credentials of hundreds of Orthodox rabbis in the diaspora. Here with more on this is ILTV's Aaron Porras. So Aaron, obviously this is not the first time we've heard of something like this happening or surfacing.
You are right. In fact, a rabbinate committee was established back in 2016 solely to come up with lists like these. And one of the first lists was disclosed last year, naming about 160 rabbis globally whose authority was unrecognized by the rabbinate.
Okay, so just frame this for us. How big is this current list, and what exactly does this mean for Jewish services here and abroad?
Well, it's unfortunately very hard to say, because the chief rabbinate has said that it doesn't reject rabbis or groups of rabbis who belong to one community or another. But that's seemingly exactly what's being done, specifically the hundreds of rabbis ordained through the Yeshivat Chovevei Torah organization in New York. And members of the International Rabbinic Fellowship have also been rejected now in this latest list. As for how that affects people here in Israel and abroad, well, it nullifies anything that these rabbis have done. So thousands of marriages, divorces, conversions, etc., they're all null and void in the eyes of the Israeli rabbinate.
Right.
And that has massive and sweeping implications, not just in the diaspora, but like I said, here in Israel as well.
So clarify this, because what exactly do you mean when you say something like that?
Well, here in Israel, one of the biggest implications, for example, is the fact that hundreds of thousands of Jews who are considered Jewish enough to move here and enlist in the military aren't going to be Jewish enough to marry or divorce or pass on their Jewish title to their children. And it thus forces these people to either decide to live with it which comes with massive complications, or go through the conversion process again with the Israeli rabbinate. And many are complaining that this is evidence of the rabbinate trying to monopolize the religion.
Right. Well, what's supposedly wrong about these blacklisted rabbis, what they say?
So that's another problem, actually. The Chief Rabbinate Committee I mentioned earlier was supposed to create clear, transparent criteria for what a recognized rabbi actually looks like. But they never did it, and has only even convened once or twice in 2 years.
Wow.
So it could be any number of reasons why these rabbis were rejected, from simply practicing the quote-unquote wrong type of Judaism to political differences.
Well, this is obviously a very complicated question. Something we can dive into a lot another time. Well, thanks for coming in, Aaron. I'm sure many are keeping a very close eye on this exact issue. Well, at any time in Israel, tens of thousands of foreign workers are legally employed throughout the country, and primarily they're working in construction. And this includes citizens from Turkey, Romania, Bulgaria, and even thousands of Palestinians from the West Bank. But by far, one of the biggest contributors of foreign workers to Israel is China. Well, it looks like that may be about to change. China has just blacklisted a number of Israeli construction sites, forbidding its workers and citizens from traveling there, alleging that Israel employs unsafe working conditions.
Statistically, accident rates on Israeli sites are rather high, but things have taken a dark turn for the worse lately. Earlier this month, 38-year-old Chinese citizen Chang Zhong died in a horrible accident while on the job in Jerusalem, plunging 25 feet from a scaffolding to his death. Unfortunately, this incident wasn't the first. 4 Chinese nationals have died while working on Israeli construction sites since August of last year. That was when the Israeli government first signed its deal with China to acquire a total of 20,000 trained construction workers from China. Israeli personnel are usually short-staffed and untrained on sites because workers prefer to graduate to managerial positions. This does present a problem, though. Managers unfamiliar with the demanding and, yes, sometimes dangerous nuances of manual construction can set the stage for disaster with unreasonable demands. This, coupled with the cultural disparity between Israeli staffers and foreign workers, can lead to an overall breakdown in communication. This is some of the speculation surrounding these recent deaths. As a result, China has refused to send Chinese workers to many sites throughout Israel until conditions are improved. And this hiccup is not only crippling the Israeli construction efforts, but also potentially damaging business ties overall with China, ties that every nation in the world are competing for. Israeli lawmakers are mobilizing for that reason to discuss an immediate solution.
Well, if you've ever known someone who's been through corrective limb treatment, or if you've even been through this yourself, you already know that it's a long and very difficult process. And even after surgery, patients have to regularly tighten pins connected to their bones with a stabilization device. But now, and for the first time ever, an Israeli robot has just stepped in and effortlessly done this job all by itself.
A 15-year-old boy in Jerusalem is the world's first patient to have a bone deformity corrected through this cutting-edge and fully automated system. To illustrate what a breakthrough this is, let me explain how this process has worked until now. After undergoing corrective bone surgery, the limb is usually fitted with a kind of stabilizing cast rigged with a series of metal rods that press deep into the bone. These rods need to be tightened every day by hand with a highly precise series of turns, and sometimes this needs to be done for months on end. As you can imagine, this process is not always pleasant, and because of the accuracy it requires, doing it wrong can even cause worse problems or result in further surgeries. That's where an Israeli startup called Orthospin enters the equation. Orthospin came up with a revolutionary new robotic system that takes regular readings in the affected region of the limb and tightens the pins accordingly totally on its own. This promise is probably why the teen's family took the chance and gave the robot its first true human trial. Doctors studied the x-rays closely and were both parts amazed and relieved to discover that the system was working perfectly. But the truest proof came when finally, at the end of a long process, the cast finally came off and the teenager took one look at his leg, exclaiming, quote, "See how my leg looks normal." Needless to say, hopes are very high that other patients may soon be saying the exact same thing.
Israel's largest financial technology conference is back, and let me tell you, few conferences are like it. FinTech Junction 2018 will boast talks and meetups on cryptocurrencies, blockchain, mobile banking, cybersecurity, and way more. And to top it off, over 1,500 professionals, investors, and entrepreneurs from all over the world have already signed up to attend. And joining me now with more on this is the CEO of FinTech Junction, Ben Peled. So Ben, this is the second year of the Junction, correct? What can we expect different from last year? What's going to be new?
Yeah, so this is the second year of FinTech Junction, organized by People and Computers. What's new is, first of all, we've seen a record quarter and year so far in terms of fundraising from startups, FinTech startups in general, as well as companies raising ICOs, initial coin offerings, where they issue a coin in return for Bitcoin or Ethereum, and so, growing the cryptocurrency economy.
Yeah, so the market has really changed, probably a lot of what the conference will be about.
Exactly. So people are going to come to the conference from all over the world, from Europe, from US, from Asia, and of course from Israel, to witness and to meet Israeli entrepreneurs, Israeli startups, whether it's in financial services, banking, insurance, which is part of financial services, cryptocurrencies, cybersecurity, AI, all these different topics and technologies all come together in this conference, and in the way we consume, in the way we pay, in the way we invest, in the way we grow our financial.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Can you tell me do you have any success stories maybe from last year, like something amazing that you saw happen last year that made you excited for this year to come?
Sure. We've heard a number of feedbacks, So for example, one of our sponsors is a big bank in Israel, and they met with the startups they were hoping to meet, and it was so secret that they couldn't tell me, but I know that they're working with them on implementing some of their solutions. We have our own startup competition, and the winner just won a grant from something related to the government where they invest in them, basically.
Wow. I think a lot of people don't realize that cryptocurrencies and this new cutting-edge digital world of like banking and finances really is quite big in Israel, right?
It's huge. It's huge. Among the top 10 ICOs, there's a few companies from Israel. Out of the top fintech startups, meaning the most valued startups, some are Israeli. So yeah, just like in other industries, cybersecurity, automotive, fintech is one of the top.
Leader. Wow.
We are a leader, yeah.
Very cool. Where is the conference going to be?
Conference is at the Hilton, Tel Aviv, June 24th. There's still tickets. I urge everyone to register and to enjoy an entire day of networking and learning, and talking about the future of money.
Very cool.
And lots of other things.
Cool. So you hear that? If you want to check it out, the website is www.fintechjunction.com, right?
Correct.
Cool. Very cool. Ben, thank you so much for joining us, and
Good
luck this year.
Thank you.
Well, as we know, conditions for the average citizen of Gaza are deteriorating every day. Gazans live under strict Hamas rule, a rule which has forced severe blockades on the Strip by Israel and Egypt, leaving its citizens in dire need of resources. Well, a group of engineering students have come up with a little school project to help the crisis by turning sea waves into electricity.
Among the many gaps in Gaza's infrastructure, the power deficit is among its most severe. Israel and Egypt supply Gaza with roughly half the electricity that it needs. The Palestinian Authority used to provide most of the rest, but since has cut off power lines in an effort to force Hamas into negotiations. This move was widely condemned, and President Abbas was accused of leveraging a humanitarian crisis for his own political gains. The average household in Gaza currently only receives enough power for a few hours of electricity per day. At night, nearly the entire strip is pitch black. But a team of 4 students from the Islamic University of Gaza's engineering department are putting their scholastics to good use. Their project would ideally harness the Earth's natural tides and waves and turn it into power that families can use in their home. While this idea isn't without precedent, making it a reality in Gaza certainly would be. The students quickly discovered that even the most ordinary household tools and machines were nowhere in sight, forcing them to rework old machines, come up with new solutions, and often rebuild totally from scratch. The tides of war can often turn a blind eye to those caught in the crosshairs. Israeli leaders have often lamented that despite Hamas's political objectives, it has ultimately been the citizens of Gaza who have suffered the most.
Well, as if winning the 2018 Eurovision Song Contest was not enough, we've just learned that Israeli superstar Netta Barzilai has signed a new international record deal for distribution rights to her hit song, Toy, and ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh, of course, is here with all details related to Netta Barzilai.
Yes, thank
What's
you,
new?
Brett. Okay, first of all, I just have to say that Netta is really just starting her career out right now, whether it be
Right, she just won Eurovision.
Exactly.
This is the beginning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whether winning the Eurovision, whether it's the song Toy with her really powerful lyrics or her as a role model, on her own as a pop star. I think that she's really just making her way right now. And now a global record company has the distribution rights. They signed a contract. The company's called S-Curve BMG. But it's very important to Netta's Israeli representative and Netta herself to make sure that we all know that it's just distribution rights to this song,
so there's
specifically
one song.
Toy.
So it's not a record deal for multiple records down the line?
No. It's not. Yeah. Obviously, this is a huge honor and very exciting for us as Israelis and Netta, as the winner of the Eurovision.
Well, BMG represents some of the biggest bands in the world. They're the guys who, when you see a Super Bowl ad, what's the song in the background? They're the guys who are the agents and put the song in the background. So.
Exactly. So now her song, her lyrics, her powerful, persona, you could say, is now going to be distributed worldwide. Everyone's going to be hearing the Israeli song with English lyrics, talking about being a powerful and empowered woman, which I absolutely love. But an even more exciting milestone for Israelis and Netta in general, the Eurovision YouTube channel has just come out with an announcement saying that Netta's song Toy is the most viewed video on their whole YouTube channel on all of Eurovision, which is a huge honor, but it's also the first time it's happened since one of the German submissions in 2010. So this is like 8 years later.
It's quite a record.
We just took this title with over 61 million views. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, no, I know that song. I mean, when that song was put on YouTube, and I'm not a Eurovision guy, but that song, I knew about that song just because it was so much traction online. And it put her at the top of the polls, even just to win weeks ahead of the competition.
Exactly.
So.
People knew, not just Israelis, but worldwide, that there was a very, very high chance that Netta was going to win, not just because of the song, but also the performance and the music video itself.
Right, and also her.
Her as a person who will be performing at this year's Gay Pride Parade in Tel Aviv, June 2nd, I believe, and then also the Haifa Gay Pride Parade on June 22nd.
Wow.
And on top of that, she will also be setting the stage at the Shaka Hip Hop Festival alongside American rappers Tyga and Fat Joe. So I'm definitely going to be there.
Well, I have a feeling this is the first of many headlines to come with Netta Barzilai's name in the headline.
It's going to be the Gal Gadot Wonder Woman all over again. We're going to be talking about her every week.
Yeah, so I'll probably see you soon.
Yes,
all right.
for sure.
Thank you. Thanks for the info, Emmanuel. So Israeli farmers began their work week on a somewhat sour note. After packaging hundreds of pounds of onions from their fields, Galilee farmers awoke the next morning only to discover that nearly a third of their harvest had been stolen from right under their noses. And this onion heist went down on kibbutz Manara, where local farmers say that although this may be the biggest thefts of late, it isn't the first.
Representatives say that they've been under near daily agricultural crimes, including theft, crop burning, and even the torching of their farming vehicles. Locals claim that these acts are nationalistically motivated, though admit money may be the true bottom line here. At this time, no suspects have been identified for any of these alleged crimes, nor has evidence been offered that suggests terrorism as a motive. This week's heist netted 440 pounds of onions. This would yield a quite significant chunk of change if sold directly to retailers.
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by IDC Samru Ulpan, open to everyone.
All right, look, I enjoy my onion rings as much as the next guy. And that's why our last story about an onion heist really bummed me out. And that's also why today's word is a shout out to one of the all-time greatest veggies of all time, batzal, or the onion. Now, whether you like them raw in your salad or deep-fried southern style like my grandma Smith used to make, batzal, or onion, is the perfect accomplice to any dish. And don't even get me started on the smell of caramelized fried onions or batzal metugan. It's the best. It's like catnip, for certain news anchors. But be warned, friends, if you eat too much batzal, you're gonna end up smelling a little bit like a batzal. Obviously, I don't know that personally myself from personal experience. I read about it once. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight you can expect partly cloudy skies with a chance of showers and a low of about 71 or 20 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow we'll have more local rains and little change in temperatures. The high should be around 81, and that's 27 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.58 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Brett Allen Smith, and thank you for watching.